person. Well, he said things are way too nice for me, actually. But I'm really glad to see churches get involved in politics. We have abortion as part of our state constitution. What were the churches doing? You gotta wonder, what were they doing? What were the people? Sitting in pews, not voting, not going out, not learning the issues? 4 of 10 people vote the primaries. That's why we have to get involved. Because you know who wins? It isn't be the people. It's the activists. It's the activists. And all of us got to become fire in our eyes, mean, aggressive activists to get our message out there, because our message is the one that says there's one God. And if you would turn away from truth and to turn away from God, you really need to do a serious evaluation. And that affects how you vote. And that's why I got involved with Bruce, because I'm the chairman up in Lake County. And one of our attacks this year, we're not just doing the political and the grassroots, but we're also doing the spiritual. We're trying to get the churches to wake up and say, what are you doing? These things are affecting your life. These things are getting into our Constitution. These things are ruining the lives of your children. Are you going to get involved, or are you just going to sit there? Because I think you have an obligation. You have an obligation to yourself. You have an obligation to God. Do not let politics be run by people who do not have your best interests at stake. So that's the main reason why I got involved with Bruce. And now I'm going to tell you another real story. That's a fine intro. I'm House District number 12. I had the honor of being in the 6th and 9th legislature as my first term. And so what a joy that was to be in a legislature that the veterans tell me was the worst one they ever seen in their lives. So that not was one. So I am running for re-election again because you learned so much in that first session. You go in there with so much naivete and so much belief that everybody there is going to be working to help make the state of Montana better. And then you get there and you see the back dealing and the skeletons in the closet and the groups, and there's other people that have formed together that are hurting we little state of Montana, and you're shocked. But you walk out of there with your eyes wide open, and that's why I'm on it for re-election again. It's got to go back. It's time to get the right people here, because let me tell you, what you say about the primaries is exactly right. It matters who wins the primary. If you want to have a choice in the general, you better pick the right person in the primary. That way you'll have the right person get elected in the general, and you will have people on the House floor and on the Senate floor that will do bidding of the American people and do bidding of the people of the state of Montana, and not be mainly secret alliances behind in the dark rooms somewhere in that capital that I never found, that making these deals that are giving you kind of tax structure by the bills that you're getting that coming out of the legislature that's supposed to be red. I learned 2 weeks there. By the second week, I'm sitting there going, this legislature's not red. It's purple. We are purple. And that's because we have a group of people in our own cadre of Republicans that aren't really Republicans. They're Democrats. They're Democrats. And we have to get rid of them. We need to do that through the primary process. Okay. That's not what I was going to talk about. It's live. Okay. Yeah. The friend, I can't say that name, trail. Anybody know what that is? That is the trail that goes over Canterbury, England, all the way down to Rome, that pilgrims used to walk on. And you can still walk parts of it today. And that's what my wife there in the center and I did. And so I'm not going to, trust me, don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with all my family snapshots and we took along this. But there's a reason that I'm bringing this up. And there she is on the right there looking at those sheep. When they saw me, they all ran. It's her that's from Montana, some of that little slug. I ate it. Europe is a land of mighty churches. Okay, I took that picture on the left there of a church in I think that was in, it was in Siena. But you go and look at these things and they're marvelous. Now I spent a lot of time in Europe because I did several tours there, NATO, European Command, and blah blah blah. And when I first got there with my wife, we used to take our kids And, you got to go see these churches because they're absolutely stunning. You go ahead and look at the stained glass windows and the pillars. And oh, my God. And you take it. After a while, they learned from their British colleagues what A.B. Singh needs. Please, Dad, not another bloody church. And I felt that way, too. After a while, when my relatives came over, I don't want to go in there either because I've seen it too many times. But you know what? Things have changed. Things have changed in my life since 2015 in particular, and they changed in this country. I don't look at it the same anymore. So what do these represent in their time? That's the inside. I took this picture of the Milan church. It took about 600 years to build that church. 600 years. Now, what in the world are you doing for that many generations working on churches? What are you doing? And this was all over. In Europe, you see these all? Notre Dame, the theater, the one in Cologne, Milan, the one in Ticamica. All these villages had these spectacular works done by people who were never going to see the end of their work. They're going to be dead before that church was done, but they still worked on it. What were they doing? What were they thinking? Slide. Faith was something they had. It was everything they were. It wasn't just something that they, I embrace this faith. It was all aspects of their life. They poured their lives into these cathedrals because this was their identity. This was their community. This was their hope for eternity. And all that fused into this one unstoppable force that made them dedicate their lives to building these fantastic, incredible churches. Like I said, they died never seeing the end of their finished work, but they stayed dedicated to it. 200 years to build Notre Dame, 632 years to build one Cologne, and over 500 for the one in Noah. Slide. The universe was God. It was the total operating system. It permeated every aspect of their lives. There was no separation between what was sacred and what was secular. It was all rolled into one. They all lived in that divinely ordered hierarchy. Truth in life, not relativism. Truth. They all were wondering, what is truth? But whatever that truth might be, that's what we need to adhere to. That's what we need to cling to. So they made that order, that belief in these beautiful cathedrals by the work they put into the stained glass windows, believing that this was the very light from God himself coming into their church. Next slide. The states were eternal. Heaven and hell were not metaphors. The promise and the hope, as well as the consequences of negligence and willful blindness to truth, those were very real to them. And they were painted on every church wall. If you go over there, you'll see, there's all the paintings. And then if we go and you look at some of the cardias, Michelangelo, and some of his unbelievable works, the David is just knocks you over first time you see. The Sistine Chapel. I mean, all this stuff, this was their life. This was absolutely critically important to them. Okay? These medieval builders, they're not just architects. They were theologians in stone. Next slide. And from this came Western civilization. Western civilization has done more to lift more people out of poverty, to give more people an opportunity to live. There are more people to have an advantage in life, to not be downtrodden, to not have to deal with the disease. I mean, Western civilization has done incredible things for this entire planet. Poverty and, certainly hunger in the United States, these are getting to be things of the past, and that is all due to the general construct of Western civilization built on this belief in God and belief in truth. Yes, I have to call those preachers, so you are seeing my message. Next slide. But this didn't come without struggle. It took courage. It took brave hands doing some heavy lifting that can often be very uncomfortable for everybody who has to do it. This is King John's Jan III Sabitz, yeah, you see his name, that Polish name, at the gates of Vienna. This is where they finally stopped the Islamic invasion back in 1683. He was a dedicated Catholic, very devout, and he led an army down there to turn back the Ottomans at Vienna. The bell that's in the chapel there, I spent a lot of time in Vienna in prior life, and that bell was made from they melted out all the Turkish cannons, and they made that bell. And that's what hangs in St. Stephen's Dome in Vienna to this day. You got World War II, it fell around Rome, and they put back to it. And now it's back up there. So that's very interesting. But it took, what I'm saying is, it takes busy hands. It takes people willing to get out there and fight for what they believe in. If you believe in God, if you believe that Christ came to this earth for all of us, okay, you might just be asked to do something more than sit in the pew on Sunday. Next slide. So where are we today? Well, I had the joy, as you can see there, being in Bosnia during the 90s. And the reason I bring that up is because there was a lot of politicking going on there. There was a big fight between the Serbs. Throughout the 90s, the U.S. acted as a quick reaction force for the Muslim world. We went in there to help protect them from the Orthodox Christian Serbs who were shelling. They're pumping at like 10,000 shells a day, as you can see. In that center part of the building, people still live there. And so we, with a quick reaction force there, we had a quick reaction force in Iraq. And of course, our reward for that was 9/11. So this is something that I think about quite a bit. We told the Albanian government fell, and all their arteries were raided by Kosovars. They lost their arteries. And the Kosovars, who were Islamic, said they were going to take over Kosovo. And the Serbs said, no, Kosovo's ours. Well, we told the Kosovars, because I was there, we're not going to be your Air Force if you do that. And of course, they did it anyway, and we were their Air Force. So I'm not sure why that worked out that way. But when the Kosovars went in there, they extracted the extreme revenge. And what's the first thing they did? Slide it. They destroyed all the monasteries and churches, razed them to the ground. In the International Center for Transitional Justice state 155 Christian churches and monasteries were destroyed or seriously damaged. This is an attack on Western civilization. This is the fight that is ongoing. Next slide. As a matter of fact, I think many of you have heard about this, right? Nigeria. This is going on right now, today. 240 Christians massacred, attacks in villages there. 2025. Easter's a season of hell for many Nigerians. While the world's looking the other way, there's a Christian genocide going on right now. Next slide. What's happening in our local communities? Well, our republic's under attack. Leftist violence, cultural attacks, perversion of reality. We just saw that with our own glorious Supreme Court that we had, right? You can put anything you want. I carried Teresa's bill in the House on the driver's license issue. Put on there that, hey, if you're a citizen, you get an emblem on your driver's license that says you are a citizen. These are the things that we've been trying to do and get through. And what we do get through, and the House votes that, look, if you're actually biologically female, that's what goes on your driver's license. And the Senate says, that's correct. And then it goes to the governor. He says, I like it. And he signs it. And the Supreme Court goes that. These are the things why we need Dan Wilson's got to win that race. You have to get Dan Wilson to the Supreme Court. And we as a legislature in his next term are going to have to put further restrictions out there. Personally, I am for pulling all their funding. I'm for pulling their funding. This Supreme Court I mean, they're just out of line. And I had this talk with the justice, with Corey Swanson a little while. He came down. He's probably come to your account, students, and well, we need to get a better relationship going on between the legislature and the Supreme Court. And I said, you know what? I agree with that. We have to see each other as humans, but this is on you guys. This isn't on us. This isn't on the legislature. This is on you and the judiciary. You're the ones that had destroyed your credibility with Montanans by being this absurd, ridiculous arm at the Democratic Party, known as the Montana Supreme Court. He didn't like that much. Competition for your child's mind, corruption in public affairs. We just heard a lot about that. Okay. Western civilization is under attack from the outside and from within. Slide. The fact of the matter is, certainly it seems like over the last 10 years, that's the reason I'm here, because let me tell you, I had a very comfortable retired life. I have a wife who hates the fact that I'm involved in this stuff again. I did my time. I did 35 years of military service and retired to Montana, obeyed that culture. Then I would rid the life of someone who's in the witness protection program. That's kind of what I want. And for the first 4 years, it was glorious. We did see our neighbors. We just sat and worked on our property. It was wonderful. She's not a big fan of us doing this. But from 2015 on, this country has been we have been under a relentless assault. Civilization globally is under assault. We've been under assault here in our own country. And I just couldn't stand to not get involved and say, I've got to do something. I've got to do something to try to help. Because evil, and it's interesting, you'll see even secular people use that word now. That's when I really started to think that people are beginning to recognize that there is a cloud of evil hanging over the entire globe. You start hearing secular people, non-religious people say, demon. Must be a demon. Well, that's pretty, I think there's a spirit of evil. You're in people that you never see a church ever using that, because even they are recognizing what's happening in this country is evil. It's not just politics. It is a spirit of evil. And we have to do something about that. What can I do? And I don't want to do it. Okay? I don't want us, but, here I am. Moses, please send someone else. Gideon, at the least, handle them weak. And in a weak clan, Jeremiah, I don't know how to speak. I'm too young. How can I go, Saul? If Saul hears, he'll kill me. King Saul, he hit him out the baggage rather than step forward to accept his role in all of this. Sound familiar? I mean, God doesn't say that's the best. He's the best looking. He's 106'4", 200, depending on what he very often picks from us the people you don't expect, like Donald Trump. No one would expect Donald Trump. Where did he come from? But he does that. And you know it when he reaches out, puts his hand on your shoulder and says, you're going to do this. And you turn around and say, I don't want to do it. He says, I don't care if you were to do it. You're going to do it. And the best thing you can do is embrace that spirit and move forward, and there will be sacrifice. And you may die miserably. John the Baptist, who may die, some other horrible fashion. But what God says, you're my person, I need you to do it. You got to step up to the plate and you got to do it. That's your obligation to God and your obligation to truth. Yeah. Through the next slide. You might be a whale leaky. It's one of my favorites. I thought of this before I talked with Bruce up there. Jonah is a great one, right? Jonah, he says, I need you to go talk to the Assyrians. You're going to go do it. He says, yeah, so those people are defiant. I'm a bit scared. I'm going to get on this boat and I'm going to go exactly the opposite direction. Well, you see how that worked out. They found out who he was. They threw him off the boat and a whale swallowed him and spin him up on the shore as a whale leaky. You're going to do it. You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. I know it's hard. God, boy, do I know it's hard. And I haven't even sacrificed anything compared to what so many of you had probably done, and certainly what these people had to face back in their times. But you got to do it. And you're not going to escape God's grip. When he says it's time and you feel his hand at your shoulder, the only way you can do it is by turning to evil. The only way you turn away from what God has asked you to do is to embrace the other side. And that's the long answer because he gives you the encounter. Every election since 2015 has been critical to the United States. There were important ones before that, but name an election since 2015 that hasn't been critical. We saw what happened when 2020 was stolen, which it was, and we're all seeing that now. 6 years later, it looks like that election might have been stolen. We all knew it back then. But we had 4 years of gulags. We had 4 years of knocks on the door in the middle of the night for people that were already cooperating with the police. We had them shuffled off to jail, put in orange silk suits. These elections are all 2024 was critical. We have a chance. This midterm, if we don't win these midterms, we are going to be in a bad situation. Because if we can't get the Trump agenda, keep it going, and show that there is an advantage in having him in the White House and win it again with someone who would be very similar to him in 2028, we could lose in 2028 and then we're right back to the gulags. They have already said they're going to do that, haven't they? They've already promised us that they're going to throw us in jail. I'm one of them they'll want to throw in jail. So is Teresa. She's probably number one of the years. The bill. So we have to win. We have to win. And I know you're weary of the fight. I know I am. I didn't want to do this stuff. Got involved back then and have been at it ever since. And if you treat your life's like mine, it follows, bring it, 7 days a week. People come here, talk to us here, do this. I need this help. I got constituents. I have to make sure I take care of this. It's like being back there. It's worse than being in a flying squadron, that's for sure. But we got to reach out. We got to help our fellow citizens. That's what we're here for. And I know some of you are weary from this fight, but, remember, John, if like it or not, some of you are going to have to be whale Louise. You're going to have to get out there and you're going to have to do what God asks you to do when he puts his hand on your shoulder and says, move out, get it done. 2024 years, the indication of Vatican D, we're in the fight to save the Republic and Western civilization. That's what we're doing. And the churches got to stand up and get involved and stop hiding behind 501c3 status and all that stuff, because it's your heart that is in question. And your heart has to guide you to the right person, as fallible as they might be, as fallible as I am, as fallible as Don Trump is. Your heart's got to guide you to the right person. And if you could find even strong people like the people you have seen up here on the stage today and get them in there, you got to do it. You got to get out there and do it, because we're fighting to save the Republic and we're fighting to save Western civilization. That's what this fight's about. Next slide. Christian civilization roots founded this nation. You saw the trailer. People wanted to say never wanted. They were separated. They didn't leave this. They were deists. They were, read a little history. Read a little history. You'll find out these people, our founding fathers, what they really believed and what they believed God's role was in each one of our lives. This is not the time to sever our roots from what our Christian roots, in particular, from what we expect of our offense. Why would we do that? Why did we do that? Not voting is surrender. Not participating is surrender. And surrender means evil wins. Next slide. We owe it to those who went before, and we owe it to those who are yet to come. Very important on this Memorial Day weekend to remember that. Just, my father fought in every major campaign on the Western Front of World War II. He landed at Omaha Beach and fought in every battle and didn't die, which was kind of amazing. And so I'll be out put flowers on his grave in Polsa. My mom's buried next to. We got to remember that it took some rough hands to get here. My dad's life was changed by that in ways that I never realized till I got older. But if any of you have been in those situations, there's a lot of things happen that you are never going to forget. Never. And he would never talk about it. I got to take him after a car accident. It was a bad car. So I got taken back to Europe in 1997. I was stationed at European Command. No way, I was at NATO in 1997. First time he'd been back, this was before Sable Private Ryan. And I got to take him to all places he had been. All these years later, he still accidentally let out a story or two that he had never told to any of us when we were kids. I tried to drag it out of him. When I realized my dad had been in all these places that you hear, Malmedy, his unit was a unit that found the soldiers that were massacred at Malmedy. And when we went to that memorial, he said, "This is in the wrong place." And he was right. They weren't massacred here. They were massacred over in that field. And all those years later, he knew that. He knew the difference. But he would tell us anything about that. They carried. So we got to remember what these people had done, whether it's World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. But they have to carry with them to their dying day. And they did it for us. And they did it because they thought it was the right thing to do for their country. So all of us, we got to get out there. We got to do our part too. Next slide. ABC, another bloody church. That's all I have. And that poor child there say, "Please, Dad, did you shut up? Just quit talking. Quit talking." So I will quit talking. Thank you for letting me come here and speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Bruce, for waking up the churches.